One global rule that covers the front end, back end, and test. Sound clean. Until the models start applying those test conventions to back-end code or front-end code. This is lesson 3, instruction architecture. We will design a layer instruction files so the right rules can reach the right task without flooding the context. By the end, you know how to split global, path scopes, and task-specific rules, so the assistant behave differently in different folders. Before the example, here is one mental model to keep. Instructions are path filtered. They load automatically. Agents and skills are selected. Prompts are invoked on demand. Routing model is why the same assistant can actually behave differently in different files without repeating anything. The example which we will walk in short time intentionally narrow. We created one pure businessable module and one matching test file. That gives us the clearest view of scope instruction layering. The change we are requesting is a very niche. It's a very specific middle requirement, very difficult for AI to come on its own. That's why we choose the scenario. And the example code has around 200 files and a lot of context to read. And we would like to see, can we deliver it with a minimal context bloat? Because the rule and test should activate different instruction stack automatically, we should be confident to achieve it. Before we get here in the flowchart, let's go in VS Code and understand and run by ourselves. So we are in the VS Code and the example code is checked into GitHub. You can download and try yourself. We'll just run our wrapper, which is the util.py, and it's running basically 03 Copilot CLI demo. It removed the source. Now it has copied the new source and actually running the Copilot CLI command right now. So we can see here what we are anticipating. If I refresh this, we would anticipate 2 files to be in the precision engineer and 5 patterns to be validated. One is a legal 218. Anyone who works on any Californian financial system, they would know what this law is. It's a very niche requirement and not specifically handled by AI unless explicitly provided. Mandatory event, false positive with some of the hard negatives. It also describes test file correctly. We have given this constraint using this layer instruction set. If we carefully see this instruction set, all the instructions has some sort of a glob filtering, which will ensure that correct instructions are applied when correct module has been loaded. Now, here is one thing, and I would say more sort of advice how to design this. The folder structure of code and the naming convention of file can actually really be helpful when designing this layer instruction. For example, if we develop a naming convention of a file that can horizontally provide segregation, such as like a file name dot horizontal dot cy. Horizontal would be anything, test, business, or whatever the horizontal module you want to apply there. Or you provide the segregation of a business domain using a folder structure. By doing so, you allow the block pattern to maintain a very neat instruction layer on top of each and every section of a code, and that will allow to curate that instruction very smartly without any context brought. Now let's go back on our example. The example is finished. Let's refresh what we did. If you see here, as a result, we did actually change this to file, added this to file, which is as expected. And if you see the demo patch here, we got this file added and notification channel disabled rules. It provided the correct hard, positive and negative. It has added the legal 218 requirement, SMS requirement. That's perfect. Mandatory event has been provided correctly. And then the test has been applied as we anticipate. All the hard positives and the hard negatives has been clearly defined what we wanted to achieve. Now, here is the reason why it has achieved, because of the layered instruction. Otherwise, for AI on its own to achieve this is very difficult. Let's see what it did. So this was the prompt that was provided, and the CLI achieved the same objective. if we want to visualize this, there is a assessment file always generated after this code run. And if we see this assessment file, then it has validated all the standards we have set: context serialization validation, prompt alignment, change correction, which you validated all of them, and object and all sort of stuff, and the context timeline, which will be very helpful to understand that how a context lead the agent in order to observe as well as discover different contexts and eventually manage to provide the right. So we can see here towards the end, we managed to write after compiling the whole context that is needed. And that's what I could call a very much a context success. So let's go back on our presentation and find out on the front what actually happened. So the very first, the open root file, the global rule combined with backend instruction.md. The assistant now see the root module, the pattern, the authorization middleware, and mutating the root expectation before it can even answer. Then it moves to the rule authoring, where actually the rule layer was activated, and it figured it out where the clear expectation was set for the legal 218 and also the other exceptions that were mentioned in there. So without overriding other exception, it just managed to create a California specific patch which we were anticipating. And this is where the critical idea of precision engineering with AI assisted programming does exist, because without that, AI on its own very hard to deliver this kind of a small and very precise patches. The open middleware actually opened then this is root author, and then it switched to the auth and the security conventions, and then immediately applied the correct security instructions which were required. So the session as it progressed changed couple of roles. First backend, then routing, and then security. In also routing, it identified the very important exceptions. Especially I have left some specific exceptions that to be covered with the Californian law, and they all been handled. Now then if we go further, then it moved to the testing instructions. So now the persona has been obtained was test persona, and it did all the scenario testing that we anticipated, especially the false positive and hard negative, which is very hard for AI to understand and implement without a clear assistant from external context. And this is what exactly they achieved there. The design lessons are simple. Keep the repo wide, lean file, push the domain rule into the scope files. By the segregation, either by using the file deterministic file patterns or folder paths. Let the file path decide what matters. In our run, the model read about 35, and there were more than 200 files available to read. So it's pretty much success in that context. It made 31 tool calls under 3 minutes. It created a pure root rule module plus the test file. It corrected some of the unused import. That precision comes from a scope instruction, not a prompt. One quick tip to create smart instructions. You can obviously use /create instruction command in VS Code Copilot chat. Builds a targeted instruction file with the front matter and the body as you wish. You can also type /instruction to open the configuration and the editor part. But here is my one advice if you use this method. The AI does not generate very effective instruction layer. I would always recommend to go and manually edit the instruction context as you need. Ensure there is no duplication, ensure there is a clear discovery, and ensure there is no linearity. There must be a graph architecture where the graph can lead to the exploring further and further down the line the context you would need and eventually end up to the code. Next lesson in 4, we cover planning workflows, the prompt file, and read-only planning agent. So this is very much we wrap up lesson 3. Now here is my question for you. Have you ever had a single global rule file that caused more harm than help? Maybe a test rule that leaked into production code, or backend convention that confused with a frontend. Tell me what unscoped you in comment. The best comment and question will get an exclusive live session. We have so many experience to share, especially when we work with a client, we learn a lot of new things. In those sessions, we bring everyone to share their own experiences, their real world experiences. So make sure you comment and you bring your real world experience. We always anticipate that. Now hit subscribe and turn on the notification so I can see you in lesson 4 straight away as it gets released. I'll see you in the next session.